The shuttle docked with a soft hiss and stepped onto the Interstellar Academy for the first time. She stood at 5 feet 4 inches tall, with black hair tied back in a simple bun and dark eyes that watched everything. Around her, beings of 100 different species moved through the massive arrival hall. Some towered 15 feet high, others floated on currents of energy. A few existed as nothing more than clouds of light. She was the first human to ever attend this place. The academy was older than human civilization itself. For 50,000 years, the children of powerful alien families had come here to learn diplomacy, science, and war. They left as leaders of their species. The station itself was the size of a small moon, with gardens that held plants from 10,000 worlds and libraries that contained knowledge humans had not yet dreamed of. Carried one bag. Inside were 3 uniforms, a tablet, and a photograph of her family back on Earth. She was 22 years old. She had spent 4 years in the United Earth Defense Corps before someone decided that humanity needed a representative at this ancient school. They had chosen her because she was smart, because she was tough, and because she did not break easily. She would need all of these things. A thin, gray-skinned alien approached her. He walked on 4 legs and had a face like melted wax. His name was Counselor, and he had been assigned to help her adjust to academy life. "You are the human," he said. It was not a question. "I am." He looked at her for a long moment. His species, the Tellurians, were known for their honesty. They found lying physically painful. "I must tell you something," he said. "This will be difficult for you. The academy operates on hierarchy. The older students from powerful species have authority over younger students. They call it tradition. They call it cultural education. What it truly is permission to abuse those weaker than themselves." Nodded, she had read the reports. Earth's diplomats had warned her. "Humans are considered primitive here," continued. "Your species has been traveling among the stars for less than 200 years. They have been spacefaring for 3 million years. For 2 million, they will see you as something less than them. They will test you. They will try to break you." "And the Sentinels?" asked the security force. His face twisted in what might have been sadness. "They cannot help you. The powerful families demanded it as a condition of their membership. Sentinels are forbidden from interfering in matters of cultural correction between students." He paused. "My advice to you is simple. Keep your head down. Do not fight back. Survive your time here and return to Earth. There is no shame in this." Looked at the counselor. She liked him. He was honest, and he was trying to help her in the only way he knew how. "Thank you for the advice," she said politely. She had no intention of following it. The first 3 days passed quietly. Attended her classes, studied in the library, and ate her meals alone in the commissary. She watched everything. She learned the patrol routes of the Sentinels. She memorized the faces of the from powerful families. She noted which corridors had cameras and which did not. On the 4th day, they came for her. She was eating lunch in the commissary when a shadow fell over her table. She looked up and saw a being made of living crystal. He stood 8 feet tall, and his body caught the light and scattered it into rainbows. His name was the Younger, and his family had ruled the Dominion for 600,000 years. Behind him stood 6 other, 2 more. A massive, fur-covered, 3 with pulsing blue ridges on their skulls. They blocked the exits. "You are the human," said. His voice sounded like glass scraping against glass. "I am. You will give me your food rations. It is tribute. It is how lesser species show respect to their betters." He tilted his crystalline head. "This is tradition. This is how things are done." The commissary had gone silent. 100 students watched from nearby tables. None of them moved to help. This was how things were done. Looked at her tray. She had been enjoying the synthesized noodles. They almost tasted like the ones her grandmother used to make. "No," she said. His body chimed with surprise. "You do not understand. I am not asking. I am telling you. Give me your food, human, or we will teach you your place. Set down her chopsticks. She stood up slowly. She was nearly 3 feet shorter than the noble. I understand perfectly, she said. You are a bully. You have always been a bully. Your entire species has been bullies for 3 million years because no one has ever told you no. She smiled. It was not a friendly smile. I am telling you no. His arm moved. They were fast, far faster than humans. His crystalline limb swung toward her face with enough force to shatter bone. Was not there. She had spent 4 years learning how to fight enhanced insurgents on Mars. Men and women with mechanical limbs and neural accelerators that made them twice as fast and 3 times as strong as normal humans. She had learned that speed meant nothing if your opponent knew where you were going to strike. She caught his arm, pivoted her body, and used his own momentum against him. Her hand found the joint where his primary resonance limb connected to his body. She applied pressure in exactly the right way. The crack echoed through the commissary like a gunshot. Screamed. It was a high, terrible sound, like a chandelier falling from a great height. He collapsed to his knees, his broken limb hanging uselessly. His entourage rushed forward, moved through them like water through rocks. She did not try to match their strength. She did not need to. She targeted joints, pressure points, the soft places between armor and flesh. In 30 seconds, all 6 of them were on the ground. She sat back down at her table. She picked up her chopsticks. She continued eating her noodles. When the Sentinels arrived, their leader was a massive being named Commander. He had 8 eyes and mandibles that clicked constantly. He looked at the 7 groaning, then at the small human eating her lunch. "Report," he said to his officers. The human female was attacked by 7, one sentinel said. She defended herself. Stared at for a long time. His mandibles clicked in a pattern that might have been disbelief. "I will need to file a report," he said finally. "Of course," said. "Would you like a witness statement? I have it prepared." She held up her tablet. She had written it before they even attacked her. Commander took the tablet. He read it slowly. His mandibles clicked faster and faster. "Human," he said, "what exactly are you?" Looked up at him with her dark, calm eyes. "I am Earth's first exchange student," she said, "and I am not going to keep my head down." The report filed that night was the first of many. He did not know it yet, but his job was about to become very complicated. And the Academy was about to learn what happened when you tried to subdue an Earthling female. News traveled fast in the Academy. By the next morning, every student knew what had happened in the commissary. The primitive human female had defeated 7 from powerful families. She had broken the arm of a noble. She had not even stopped eating her lunch. For species that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years, this was impossible. It was unthinkable. It could not be allowed to stand. They decided to act first. They were an ancient race, known throughout the galaxy for their psychic abilities. Their minds could reach into the thoughts of other beings and control them like puppets. For 10,000 years, they had used this power to build an empire of mental slaves. They did not need physical strength. They simply told other species what to think, and those species obeyed. 3 cornered in a study alcove 1 week after the commissary incident. Their leader was called Archon Ev. The blue ridges on his skull pulsed with psychic energy as he approached her. "You will not fight us," he said. "You cannot fight us. We are inside your mind now." Felt them enter her consciousness. It was like cold fingers pressing against her brain. They pushed deeper, searching for the controls that would let them command her body, her thoughts, her will. They found chaos. Ev had invaded thousands of minds in his life. Every species he had ever encountered had a similar mental structure. Thoughts were organized in neat patterns. Memories were stored in logical sequences. Emotions were kept separate from reason. It was simple to find the control centers and take over. The human mind was nothing like this. It was a storm. Fear and courage existed in the same space at the same time. Logic was tangled together with emotion in ways that made no sense. Memories were scattered everywhere, connected by threads of feeling rather than reason. And beneath it all, something primal and fierce was waiting. Something that had evolved over millions of years to survive against predators that were bigger, faster, and stronger. That something pushed back. Eth screamed. He tried to pull his mind free, but the chaos had wrapped around him. Human thoughts battered against his consciousness like waves against a cliff. He felt fear, anger, love, hatred, hope, despair, all at once, all mixed together, all completely overwhelming. "You tried to control a species that spent 100,000 years controlling fire," said calmly. "We tamed wolves. We crossed oceans on wooden ships. We split the atom. Our minds are not structured because we had to survive in a universe that was not structured. You cannot dominate chaos, Archon. You can only drown in it." Two of the collapsed. Their brains had been scrambled by the backlash of the failed psychic attack. Medical staff would later say they needed complete neural reconstruction. The third simply sat on the floor and wept for 6 hours straight. He never fully recovered. For the rest of his life, he would flinch whenever he saw a human. Experienced only a mild headache. She took some medicine and went to her next class. She also filed a formal complaint for unauthorized mental contact. She had read the Academy rules very carefully. Psychic assault was a serious offense. The faced academic probation. Commander's incident report grew longer. They were watching all of this with growing anger. They were a warrior species, tall and powerful, covered in thick fur and natural armor. They did not believe in psychic tricks or political games. They believed in strength, in combat, in proving your worth through battle. They challenged to ritual combat 3 weeks after the incident. 7 of their finest warriors. A formal challenge that she could not refuse without being expelled for cowardice. The fight would take place in the Academy Gymnasium, with witnesses from every species. "We will show everyone what humans truly are," the leader declared. "Weak, soft, inferior. When we are finished with you, no human will ever dare come to this academy again." Accepted the challenge. She asked only one thing, that the fight have no time limit. They laughed, they agreed. They did not understand what they had done. The gymnasium was packed with students. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species watched as faced 7 warriors. Each one was 8 feet tall and weighed 400 pounds. Their claws could tear through metal. Their reflexes were 3 times faster than any human. The fight began. For the first 30 minutes lost. She lost badly. They were stronger, faster, and more skilled. They threw her across the room. They cut her with their claws. They broke 2 of her ribs. Blood ran from cuts on her face and arms. But she did not fall. Every time they knocked her down, she got back up. Every time they thought she was finished, she kept fighting. 1 hour passed. They were breathing hard now. Their species had evolved for short, explosive bursts of combat. Their muscles were powerful but inefficient. They burned energy quickly and recovered slowly. 2 hours passed. 3 of them had to rest. Their bodies were overheating. Their limbs were shaking with exhaustion. 3 hours passed. 5 of them were on the ground, unable to continue. The remaining 2 could barely stand. Was still moving. She was bleeding, she was bruised. Every breath hurt her broken ribs, but she was still moving, still fighting, still refusing to stop. "We are persistence predators," she said to the last standing. Her voice was calm despite her injuries. "Millions of years ago, my ancestors hunted on the plains of Africa. They could not run as fast as their prey. They could not fight as well, so they did something else. They followed, they walked, they jogged. They kept moving when everything else had to stop and rest. Eventually, their prey collapsed from exhaustion, and my ancestors ate." She took a step forward, they took a step back. "You are faster than me," she continued. "You are stronger than me, but I can keep going longer than you can. I will always keep going longer than you can. That is what humans are. We are the species that does not quit." The warrior looked at her for a long moment. He saw a small, bleeding creature that should have been defeated hours ago. He saw something in her eyes that his species had never encountered before. Absolute refusal to surrender. He yielded, they all yielded. The gymnasium was silent as limped toward the exit. Every species in the academy had just watched something impossible. A single human had outlasted 7 of the galaxy's greatest warriors. Counselor met her at the door. His waxy face was unreadable, but his voice shook slightly. "That was remarkable," he said. "That was Tuesday," replied. "Now if you will excuse me, I need to visit the medical center. I think my ribs are broken." She walked away, leaving behind a gymnasium full of beings who would never look at humans the same way again. In his office, Commander wrote another report. His mandibles clicked rapidly as he typed. Something was happening at the academy, something that had not happened in 50,000 years. The hierarchy was being challenged. The powerful were being humiliated, and at the center of it all was one small human female who simply would not stay down. Was an old Sentinel. He had seen many things in his long career, but he had never seen anything like. He did not know whether to be afraid or impressed. He settled on both. 3 months had passed since arrived at the academy. In that time, she had defeated nobles, shattered minds, and outlasted warriors. She had become something that the powerful families could not ignore. She had become a problem. In a private meeting chamber deep within the academy, representatives from the 6 most powerful species gathered together. This had not happened since the Third Spiral War, 200,000 years ago. Species that hated each other, that had fought wars against each other for millions of years, now sat at the same table. They had one thing in common. They all wanted the human gone. The elder, father of the noble whose arm had broken, spoke first. His crystalline body glowed with barely contained rage. "This creature has made fools of us all," he said. "She has humiliated our children. She has broken our traditions. If we do not act, others will think they can challenge us too." Archon Eth, the elder, nodded. His son was still recovering from the mental damage of trying to invade his mind. "The human must be taught a lesson," he agreed. "A lesson so severe that no one will ever forget it." The war chief slammed his fist on the table. "We should kill her and be done with it." "No," said a cold voice. It belonged to Lady X, representative of the master strategists. Her species had won wars through planning and patience. "If we kill her, Earth will demand answers. The Concordance will investigate. We must be smarter than that." She looked around the table. "We must hurt her in a way that cannot be traced back to us. We must break her spirit, her body, and her hope, and we must do it where no one can interfere." The representatives leaned forward. They began to plan. Meanwhile had been busy. She had noticed something during her time at the academy. The powerful species were not the only ones here. There were hundreds of other species, from smaller civilizations, from conquered worlds, from places that the galactic elite considered unimportant. These students were treated almost as badly as she was. They were bullied, humiliated, and ignored. But they were watching her, and some of them were starting to hope. The first one to approach her was a small creature called Pip. He was a species known for their technical skills and their low status in the Concordance. He stood 3 feet tall and had large, nervous eyes. "I saw what you did to the," Pip said quietly, approaching her in the library one evening. "Everyone is talking about it. They are angry. They are planning something." Looked at the small alien. "How do you know this?" Pip's eyes darted around nervously. "My species works in the maintenance areas. We hear things, we see things. No one notices us because we are small and unimportant." He paused. "But we notice everything." He handed her a data chip. On it were schedules, security rotations, and records of meetings. information that should have been secret. "Why are you helping me?" asked. Pip looked at her with those large, sad eyes. "Because you are the first person in 500 years who has made the powerful ones afraid. And if they can be afraid, then maybe things can change." He left quickly, disappearing into the shadows of the library shelves. Over the next few weeks, more students came too. A mechanic accidentally left maintenance codes on her tablet. A young outcast named taught her the weak points in his species' natural armor. A servant showed her which corridors were not covered by cameras. They were building a network. Not an army, not yet, but something just as dangerous. An intelligence operation that watched the watchers. Met with Counselor one evening. She asked him the question that had been bothering her since she arrived. Why do the Sentinels allow this? Why does the Academy let the powerful species abuse everyone else? His waxy face showed pain. Tellurians could not lie, but they could avoid truth. This time he did not avoid it. "The Concordance needs money," he said simply. "The powerful families pay 90% of the Academy's budget. When they demanded that their children be allowed to discipline lesser species without interference, the Concordance agreed. It has been this way for 40,000 years. So the entire system is corrupt," said. "Yes. And the Sentinels know this. Commander knows. Most of his officers know. But they are bound by regulations they did not write. They cannot act unless a crime is committed and reported, and the victims are always too afraid to report." Was quiet for a moment, then she smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Humans have a saying," she said. "That is a nice system you have there. It would be a shame if something happened to it." 1 week later, Pip brought her the most important piece of information yet. "They have formed a coalition," he said, his small body shaking with fear. "They are calling themselves the Ascendant Conquered. 43 from the most powerful families. They are planning something for the maintenance blackout next week." The maintenance blackout was a scheduled event. For 12 hours, the lower engineering decks would lose power while critical systems were upgraded. No cameras, no lights, no sentinel patrols. The perfect place for an ambush. "They want to trap you down there," Pip continued. "They want to hurt you so badly that you will never recover. They want to send a message to every human who might ever think of coming here." Looked at the data on her tablet. 43 of the Academy's most dangerous students united against her. Species that had conquered empires, that had evolved for combat, that had technologies humans could barely imagine. She should have been afraid. Any reasonable person would have been afraid. Instead, she started planning. She spent the next week memorizing the engineering deck layouts. Every corridor, every maintenance shaft, every piece of equipment. She studied the species in the coalition, learning their strengths and their weaknesses. She talked to her network of informants, gathering every piece of information they could find. And she noticed something important. The Ascendant Conquered was united only in their hatred of her. The species involved had been enemies for millions of years. The despised the looked down on the X. The N had fought 3 wars in the last century alone. They were allies of convenience, not trust. That was a weakness she could use. The night before the blackout, stood alone in her small quarters. She looked at the photograph of her family, at the faces of her parents and her little sister back on Earth. They had no idea what she was about to do. They probably thought she was studying peacefully at an alien school. She kissed the photograph and put it away. Tomorrow, 43 of the galaxy's most dangerous students would try to break her. They did not know what they were walking into. But did. And she was ready. The engineering decks were dark. Only faint emergency lights glowed along the floor, casting long shadows between the massive machines. The air smelled of metal and coolant. Somewhere in the distance, pipes groaned as the station systems went through their maintenance cycle. 43 members of the Ascendant Conquered moved into position. They spread through the corridors in a carefully planned pattern, in the center to coordinate through psychic links, warriors blocking the exits, with jamming devices to disable any technology, ex-commanders directing the operation, assassins waiting in the shadows with their poisoned blades. They had planned for everything. The human would enter through the main corridor. She had been given false information that led her here to a supposed meeting with sympathetic students. When she arrived, she would be surrounded. There would be no escape. Their orders were clear: hurt her badly enough that she would never fully recover, but do not kill her. Death would bring investigation. Pain could be explained away as an accident. The younger waited near the entrance, his broken arm now healed but still aching. He wanted to be the first to strike. He wanted revenge. The minutes passed. The Ascendant Conquered waited in perfect silence. Then the lights went out completely. Not the emergency lights which they had planned for, all the lights, every single one. The engineering deck became absolutely black. "Report," the ex-commander hissed through the psychic link. "What happened?" "Unknown," came the reply. "Our jammers are active, but someone has cut power to this entire section. This was not in the maintenance schedule." In the darkness, something moved. The first guard did not even have time to scream. One moment he was standing at his post. The next moment, something struck the nerve cluster beneath his jaw and he collapsed unconscious. "Contact at position 7, a whispered. "One of our is down." "Converge on that location," the commander ordered. 6 warriors moved toward position 7. They found nothing but their unconscious comrade. Then 3 more went down. The Ascendant Conquered had made a mistake. They had assumed that darkness would help them. They could see heat signatures. They could sense vibrations through the floor. They could feel minds nearby. But had spent weeks studying them. She knew that the jamming field disrupted psychic communication. She knew that the engineering deck's machinery created so many heat signatures that thermal vision became useless. She knew that the constant vibration of the station's systems made ground sense unreliable. She had turned their weapons against them. And she had one advantage they had not considered. Humans were ambush predators. For millions of years, her ancestors had hunted in darkness, using patience and planning to overcome stronger prey. The night was not her enemy. The night was her home. She moved through the corridors like a ghost. She had memorized every path, every hiding spot, every piece of equipment that could be used as a weapon. When a reach for her mind, she was already gone, leaving only chaos in her wake. When a swung at her shadow, she was behind him, striking the nerve clusters that had taught her. The coalition began to fall apart. "Where is she?" screamed into the darkness. "Find her." But his allies were not listening to him. They blamed the for failing to spot the human. They blamed the for the communications failure. The cut off from their psychic network, panicked and started attacking anything that moved. Had planned for this too. She had left chemical mixtures at key locations throughout the deck. Now she triggered them. Smoke filled the corridors, thick and choking. Sounds echoed strangely, making it impossible to tell where anything was. Flashing lights, jury-rigged from maintenance equipment, created confusing shadows. The Ascendant Conquered stopped fighting her. They started fighting each other. A blind in the smoke, swung at a mistook for the human. They struck back instinctively. Within minutes, a 3-way battle had erupted between species that had hated each other for millions of years. Moved through the chaos, picking off targets one by one. She did not try to kill anyone. She did not need to. She simply made sure that every member of the coalition would wake up bruised, beaten, and humiliated. When she found he was alone, stumbling through the smoke, calling for allies who would not answer. "You," he hissed when he saw her. "You did this. How? We are the masters of war. We have fought for 3 million years." Looked at him calmly. "You have fought each other for 3 million years. You have never fought together. Your coalition was built on hate, not trust. I just gave you a reason to turn that hate on each other." She stepped closer, swung at her, but his movements were slow, exhausted, confused. She caught his arm, the same arm she had broken months ago, and twisted. He screamed and fell to his knees. "Humans have a long history of fighting against superior enemies," she said quietly. "We fought lions with wooden spears. We fought mammoths with rocks. We fought each other with nuclear weapons. We learned one very important lesson. You do not beat a stronger enemy with strength. You beat them with intelligence, preparation, and patience." She released his arm. He collapsed to the floor, gasping. "Remember this night," she said. "Remember that 43 of the galaxy's finest were defeated by one human female. And remember that I could have killed all of you, but I chose not to. That is the difference between us. You wanted to break me. I just wanted to teach you a lesson." The emergency lights flickered back on. The smoke began to clear. When Commander arrived with his Sentinels, he found 41 members of the Ascendant conquered, unconscious or groaning on the floor. 2 had fled, and in the center of it all sat, reading the Academy's disciplinary code on her tablet. She was bruised, she was bleeding from a cut on her forehead, but she was calm, she was in control. "Commander," she said without looking up, "I would like to report 43 counts of attempted assault, conspiracy to commit grievous bodily harm, unauthorized use of restricted areas during maintenance blackout, and 17 violations of the Concordance Charter regarding species-based discrimination." She finally looked up at him. "I believe that last one carries mandatory expulsion." His compound eyes studied the scene before him. His mandibles clicked rapidly as his brain tried to process what he was seeing. "You understand what you have done," he said slowly. "You have humiliated the children of the most powerful families in the galaxy. They will demand your removal. They may demand Earth's expulsion from the Concordance entirely." "They violated the Charter first," replied. "I have evidence, recordings, witnesses, everything documented according to Academy regulations." She stood up, wincing slightly at her injuries. "Commander, for 50,000 years, your Academy has allowed the powerful to abuse the weak. You have looked the other way because it was easier, because the money was good, because that is how things have always been done." She met his many eyes directly. "I am not interested in how things have always been done. I am interested in how things should be done." Behind her, one of the fallen stirred. It was the cousin of the outcast who had helped her. He looked at the small human who had just defeated 43 of his supposed betters. In his eyes, saw something he had not seen in a long time. Hoping. The commander made a decision. "I will file a complete report," he said. "Everything that happened here, everything." Nodded, "That is all I ask." She limped toward the exit, leaving behind a room full of groaning and a Sentinel commander who had just chosen a side. The war was not over, it was just beginning. But for the first time in 50,000 years, the right side had a chance of winning. The trials lasted 3 months. Had done something that no one in 50,000 years had thought to do. She had read the Concordance Charter. Every word, every rule, every regulation that the powerful families had forced into the document to protect themselves. And she had found that those same rules could be used against them. She presented her evidence not to the Academy administration, who would have buried it to protect their wealthy patrons. Instead, she filed her complaint with the Concordance Independent Judiciary, a court that had not received a legitimate case in over a century because no one had ever dared to use it. The judges were ancient beings, members of species so old that they remembered when the current great powers were still learning to make fire. They had watched the corruption of the Academy for thousands of years. They had waited for someone brave enough to challenge it. Gave them that chance. The evidence was overwhelming. She had recordings of the Ascendant Conquered planning their attack. She had medical records showing her injuries. She had testimony from dozens of students who had witnessed or suffered similar abuse over the years. Pip and all the others who had helped her came forward, finally willing to speak because someone had shown them it was possible. One by one, the members of the Ascendant Conquered were called before the court. One by one, they were found guilty. The younger was expelled on the third day. His family raged and threatened, but the evidence was clear. Archon Eth faced the same fate a week later. The warriors, the ex-commanders, the assassins, the technicians, all of them were removed from the academy in disgrace. 43 students expelled. 6 powerful families stripped of their council seats. The Academy's policy of non-interference in discipline was declared unconstitutional, a violation of the very charter that created the Concordance. The galaxy watched in shock. For the first time in memory, the powerful had faced consequences for their actions. For the first time, someone had proven that the rules applied to everyone, not just the weak. And at the center of it all stood one human female who had refused to keep her head down. Commander was promoted to Academy Security Director. His first act was to rewrite the security protocols entirely. Sentinels would now be required to investigate all reports of abuse, regardless of who was involved. They would protect all students equally, not just those whose families could afford to complain. His second act was to hire as a consultant. "You understand violence," he told her in his office, his mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "But more importantly, you understand systems, how they work, how they fail, how they can be changed." He paused. "I want you to help me build something better." She accepted. Over the next 4 years, completed her studies at the academy. She graduated at the top of her class in strategic studies and conflict resolution. She helped Commander reform the security system from the ground up. She mentored younger students from marginalized species, teaching them that they did not have to accept abuse as their natural lot in life. But perhaps her greatest achievement was what she inspired in others. After her victory, other species began demanding their own exchange students at the academy. They sent their minds. They sent their most talented engineers. Species that had been ignored or dismissed for now stood proudly in the halls where once only the powerful had walked. The old hierarchy did not collapse overnight. Change never comes that quickly, but it cracked, it weakened, and every year more students arrived who remembered what had done and refused to accept that things had to stay the same. On her graduation day, stood before the assembled academy. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species watched as she received her honors. In the front row sat Counselor, his waxy face showing something that might have been pride. Beside him sat Pip and all the others who had helped her, who had risked everything because a human had shown them that hope was possible. Commander presented her with the Academy's highest honor for service. As he pinned the medal to her uniform, he leaned close and spoke quietly. "You know they will never stop hating you," he said. "The powerful families, they will remember this for generations." Smiled, "Good. Let them remember. Let them tell their children and their children's children about the human who would not break. Let them know that we are watching and we will not go away." She returned to Earth after graduation. A dozen governments and corporations offered her positions of power and wealth. She turned them all down. Instead, she went back to the United Earth Defense Corps. She requested assignment to a new program, training the next generation of humans who would go out into the galaxy. Exchange students, diplomats, soldiers, people who would carry the lesson she had learned. On her first day as an instructor, she stood before a classroom of young humans. They looked at her with wide eyes. They had all heard the stories. They all knew who she was. "The galaxy is not ready for us," she told them. "The ancient species see us as primitive, weak, inferior. They have ruled the stars for millions of years and they expect us to know our place." She smiled. It was the same smile she had given the younger in the commissary, all those years ago. We are not going to know our place. We are not going to keep our heads down. We are not going to accept that this is how things have always been done. She paused. We are human. We are stubborn, creative, and absolutely unwilling to give up. We will show the galaxy what that means. Far away on the Academy station, a new notice hung in the Hall of Sentinels. For 50,000 years, this hall had displayed warnings about troublesome students, threats to avoid, species to handle with care. Now, in a place of honor, hung a simple sign. It read Human Advisory. Do not attempt to subdue, will adapt, will overcome, will file paperwork. Beneath it, in smaller text added by Commander himself, was a personal note. Each sentinel lamented it. None of us stopped her. We were too busy taking notes. Years passed, decades. The Academy changed slowly but surely. More humans arrived, each one carrying the legacy of the woman who had come before them. They did not all fight like Had. Some were diplomats, building bridges with species who had once looked down on them. Some were scientists, proving human worth through discovery and innovation. Some were simply students, living their lives and refusing to be treated as less than they were. But they all remembered. They all carried the lesson. On Earth grew old. She trained thousands of students. She wrote books about relations. She before the Concordance Council, pushing for reforms that would have been impossible before she opened the door. And when asked about her time at the Academy, she always said the same thing. I did not do anything special. I just refused to accept that I was inferior. I refused to stay down when they tried to push me down. Any human could have done what I did. That is the point. That is what makes us dangerous. She died at 93 years old, surrounded by family and friends. Her last words were to her granddaughter, a young woman about to leave for her own journey to the stars. Remember, said quietly, you are not primitive, you are not weak, you are human, that is enough. That has always been enough. In the great halls of the Academy, students of 100 species paused for a moment of silence when the news arrived. Even the children of the old powerful families, those who had been taught to hate her name, could not deny what she had done. She had changed everything. And in the Hall of Sentinels, someone had added a new line to the old notice. First human student, last to be underestimated. The galaxy would never make that mistake again.